Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper. Uncover the hidden secrets of history, from ancient mysteries to lost civilizations. Join us on this thrilling journey. Subscribe and dive into the unknown. In 1929, a discovery in a dusty library in Istanbul, Turkey, sent shockwaves through the worlds of history and cartography. It was a map, drawn in 1513 on gazelle skin by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. It was beautiful, detailed, and remarkably accurate for its time. But it held a secret, an impossible detail that defies all historical explanation. It showed a coastline that shouldn't have been known for another 300 years. And it showed it, without any ice. Today we investigate the Piri Reis map. Is it proof of a lost, ancient seafaring civilization? Or is it evidence of something not from this world? Is this the work of a human genius, or a case of alien cartography? Before we can explore the strange anomalies and impossible secrets of the Piri Reis map, we must first become acquainted with the object itself. A mystery is only as compelling as the reality it is built upon, and this map is not a myth or a legend. It is a tangible, physical artifact, a survivor of half a millennium. To understand the controversy it sparks, we must first understand the man who made it, the world in which it was created, the materials it was made from, and the strange journey it took to reach us in the modern age. This is not just a drawing. It's a time capsule, a work of art, and a scientific instrument, and every detail of its existence is a clue in a much larger puzzle. Our story begins with the creator himself, because a map is a reflection of its maker's mind. The Piri Reis map was not drawn by an anonymous monk in a secluded monastery or a fanciful artist with a wild imagination. Its creator was a man of action, a figure of historical significance whose name was known and respected throughout the Mediterranean. He was Muhyiddin Piri, better known to history as Piri Reis. The title Reis in the Ottoman Empire was a rank, akin to a captain or an admiral, and Piri Reis was one of the most celebrated naval commanders of his time. He lived during the absolute peak of the Ottoman Empire, a time of immense power, wealth, and intellectual curiosity. He was a man of salt and steel, a privateer in his youth who fought alongside his famous uncle, the corsair Kemal Reis, battling the naval powers of Venice and Spain. He was a warrior who understood the sea not as a romantic notion, but as a battlefield and a highway for trade and conquest. But Piri Reis was more than just a soldier. He possessed a scholar's mind within a warrior's body. He was a gifted linguist, a brilliant military strategist, and, most importantly for our story, a passionate geographer and cartographer. He was a man obsessed with maps. In a world where charts were state secrets, where a single line on a piece of parchment could mean the difference between claiming a new land for an empire or being lost at sea forever, Piri Reis collected them. As a high-ranking admiral, he had access to information that few others could ever dream of. He could study the charts of captured enemy ships, interrogate foreign sailors, and access the vast libraries and imperial archives of Istanbul, the crossroads of empires. This is crucial to remember. Piri Reis was a pragmatist. He was a man who dealt in the hard realities of naval power and navigation. The map he would create was not for decoration. It was meant to be a tool, a source of knowledge and a strategic advantage. This very fact makes the strange features we will later explore all the more baffling. Now, let us turn from the man to the masterpiece he created. To understand its significance, we must travel back in time to a specific year, 1513. The world was in the grip of a feverish new era, the Age of Discovery. Just 2 decades earlier, Christopher Columbus had sailed west and collided with a new world, shattering Europe's understanding of the globe. Vasco da Gama had rounded Africa to reach India, and the race to chart the unknown, to claim new territories and trade routes, was on. It was a time of breathtaking change and fierce competition. It is in this dynamic, energized world that Piri Reis sat down in the city of Gallipoli and put the finishing touches on his map. The object itself is a work of art. It was drawn on a large piece of cured gazelle skin, a durable and common material for high-quality documents of the period. The map is what is known as a portolan chart. This was the cutting edge of map-making technology at the time. Unlike modern maps with their familiar grid of latitude and longitude, a portolan chart is a practical sailor's tool. It is covered in a complex network of rhumb lines, straight lines that radiate out from compass roses. A sailor could use these lines to set a steady course from one point to another. The chart's primary focus is on the coastlines, meticulously detailing every bay, harbor, and river mouth. The interior of the lands, which was of little use to a sailor, is often left blank or filled with illustrations. Piri Reis's map is a stunning example of this tradition, filled with vibrant colors, intricate Turkish calligraphy, and beautiful drawings of ships, exotic animals, and the crowned heads of the rulers of various lands. It is both a scientific document and a window into the 16th century imagination. But where did the knowledge to create such a tool come from? Piri Reis was an expert, but he had not personally sailed to all the places depicted on his chart. And here we find perhaps the most important clue, a piece of information written by the admiral himself, directly on the face of the map. In a series of detailed notes, Piri Reis explains his methodology. He makes it very clear that this map is not his own original creation from scratch. Instead, he states it is a compilation, a synthesis of information drawn from about 20 different source maps. He essentially acted as an editor, a master compiler who took the best information from a vast collection of charts and blended them into one coherent whole. The list of sources he claims to have used is staggering. He mentions using the latest maps from Portuguese explorers, who were at the forefront of charting the African coast and the New World. He even claims to have used a map that was captured from Christopher Columbus himself, a detail that has sent historians on a century-long search for this lost Columbus chart. But then, he mentions a source that pushes the story from the historical into the realm of the legendary. Piri Reis states that some of his source maps were ancient, dating from the time of Alexander the Great, and that he consulted the ancient kings of the sea. This is a tantalizing breadcrumb. It suggests that Piri Reis had access to a chain of knowledge that stretched back not just decades, but for over 1,000 years, perhaps to the lost legendary library of Alexandria. The idea that cartographic knowledge from the ancient world could have survived and found its way into a 16th century Ottoman admiral's hands is the seed from which all the later, more radical theories about the map would grow. He is telling us, in his own words, that he is using lost knowledge. After its creation in 1513, the map was likely presented to the Ottoman Sultan, Selim I, and then, for reasons we do not know, it vanished from the pages of history. For 400 years, it lay silent and forgotten. Its story picks up again in 1929, not on a windswept deck of a ship, but on the dusty shelves of a palace library. A group of theologians were working to catalog the vast collection of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, the former heart of the Ottoman Empire. There, in a forgotten corner, they stumbled upon the gazelle skin chart. It was immediately recognized as a historical treasure, a relic from the golden age of exploration. But the discovery came with a final, tantalizing twist. The map they found was not a complete world map. It was clearly a fragment, a piece of a much larger whole. What we have today is the left-hand portion of the original map, showing the Atlantic Ocean and the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. The rest of the world, Asia, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific's gone. The map's reemergence into the world was incomplete. What secrets, what impossible knowledge might have been drawn on the missing pieces? This fragmentation only adds to its mystique. The surviving portion, this beautiful, detailed, and now incomplete artifact, held a secret on its southernmost edge, an anomaly that would soon be discovered, turning this historical curiosity into one of the most hotly debated objects on Earth. When the Piri Reis map was rediscovered in 1929, the initial reaction from the world of academia was one of pure, scholarly excitement. It was hailed as a historical treasure, a magnificent window into the age of discovery. For the first 2 decades after its reemergence, historians and cartographers focused on what they understood. They marveled at the stunning accuracy of the coastlines they could recognize. The shores of Western Europe and North Africa were drawn with a precision that was remarkable for the early 16th century. Even more impressive was its depiction of the Americas. The map showed the eastern coast of South America, particularly Brazil, with a clarity and correctness that suggested its creator had access to the most up-to-date, top-secret Portuguese charts of the era. The map was celebrated as a testament to Piri Reis's skill as a compiler and the vibrant, interconnected world of 16th century exploration. During this initial period of assessment, the strange landmass shown at the very bottom of the map was largely dismissed. It appeared to be a graceful eastward curve of the South American coastline, tapering off into the unknown. This was not unusual. On maps from this period, when the southern extent of the world was a complete mystery, cartographers often filled the empty space with speculative landmasses, sometimes called Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. It was considered a stylistic flourish, an educated guess, or perhaps a simple artistic decision to balance the composition of the map. For nearly 20 years, this was the accepted story. The map was a masterpiece of known geography, with a dash of 16th century fantasy at the bottom. The story of the Piri Reis map was interesting, but it was not yet a mystery. But that all changed in the 1950s. The established, comfortable narrative was about to be shattered by a history professor from New Hampshire named Charles H. Hapgood. Hapgood was not a sensationalist or a fringe author. He was a respected academic teaching at Keene State College. He possessed an insatiably curious mind and a willingness to challenge established dogma. When he encountered the Piri Reis map, he was not satisfied with the conventional explanation for the land at the bottom. He, along with his dedicated students, embarked on a years-long intensive project to re-examine every line and every curve of the mysterious chart. They weren't just looking at it as a historical artifact. They were analyzing it as a piece of hard cartographic data. It was during this meticulous analysis that Professor Hapgood arrived at a radical and explosive conclusion. He proposed that the landmass at the bottom of the map was not an imaginative drawing of the South American coast at all. He argued it was something else entirely, something that had no business being on a map from 1513. It was, he claimed, a detailed and accurate depiction of the northern coastline of Antarctica. This hypothesis, when first presented, was utterly shocking. The continent of Antarctica, a landmass completely separate from South America, was not officially discovered by explorers until the year 1820, more than 300 years after Piri Reis drew his map. How could a 16th century Ottoman admiral have possibly known the precise shape of a continent that was, to the rest of the world, a complete and total unknown? Hapgood's theory suggested that the lost sources Piri Reis mentioned were far more advanced than anyone had ever dared to believe. But Hapgood's theory went one crucial step further, a step that took the mystery from the realm of the improbable into the truly impossible. He wasn't just claiming the map showed Antarctica. He was claiming it showed Antarctica without its ice. He argued that the coastline depicted on the map did not match the modern shoreline of Antarctica, which is a coast of towering ice shelves and glaciers. Instead, he believed it matched the subglacial coastline, the shape of the actual landmass that lies hidden today beneath thousands of feet of solid ice. This was the core of the anomaly, the detail that defied all known history and science. Let's be very clear about the implications of this claim. The massive Antarctic ice cap is not a recent phenomenon. It has been there for millions of years. Scientific evidence, including analysis of sediment cores, tells us that the specific part of Antarctica shown on the map, a region known as Queen Maud Land, has been continuously buried under a thick sheet of ice for at least 6,000 years, and likely much, much longer. If the Piri Reis map truly shows an ice-free coastline, then the original source map it was copied from could not have been made in 1513 or 1492, or at any time in recorded human history. It would have to have been drawn in a prehistoric epoch, in a forgotten time before the last of the ice covered the land, a time before the pyramids of Egypt were even conceived. The mystery was no longer about a brilliant 16th century admiral. The mystery was now about a phantom civilization, a lost race of prehistoric cartographers with the ability to accurately map the world thousands of years before anyone else. Professor Hapgood knew his theory was extraordinary and that it would be met with intense skepticism. He needed validation from an authority that could not be easily dismissed, an organization with the technical means to evaluate his claims. So he took a bold step. He sent his findings and copies of the map to the United States Air Force. He specifically contacted the Strategic Air Command's Cartographic Section at Westover Air Force Base, the very people who were creating advanced maps for military purposes. He asked them as experts to evaluate the strange southern landmass. Months later, in 1960, he received a reply that would become the most famous and controversial piece of evidence in the entire Piri Reis saga. The letter was written by Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer, the commander of the 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron, and its contents were stunning. Ohlmeyer's letter did not dismiss Hapgood's theory. On the contrary, it seemed to confirm his wildest claims. Ohlmeyer wrote, and this is a near-direct quote, that Hapgood's claim that the lower part of the map portrays the Princess Martha coast of Queen Maud Land, Antarctica, and the Palmer Peninsula is reasonable. He went on to say that the geographical detail shown in the lower part of the map agrees very remarkably with the results of the seismic profile made across the top of the ice cap by the Swedish-British Antarctic expedition of 1949. He concluded with a sentence that has been quoted by mystery hunters ever since. We have no idea how the data on this map can be reconciled with the supposed state of geographical knowledge in 1513. This was the smoking gun. It was, for all intents and purposes, an official admission from a high-ranking U.S. Air Force cartographic expert that the Piri Reis map contained impossible knowledge. The letter seemed to validate everything. That the landmass was Antarctica, that it depicted the subglacial coastline, and that this was unexplainable by modern science and history. The news electrified the world of alternative research. The mystery had now transcended academic debate. It was a verified anomaly, seemingly confirmed by the United States military itself. The question was no longer if the map was impossible, but how it was possible. How did a 16th century Turkish admiral come to possess a chart of a prehistoric, ice-free Antarctica? The anomaly was no longer a theory. It was now a fact that demanded an extraordinary explanation. An impossible object requires an impossible explanation. Once the United States Air Force seemed to validate Professor Hapgood's claims, the Piri Reis map was no longer a simple historical debate. It became a genuine anomaly, a piece of data that refused to fit inside the neat and tidy box of accepted history. The central, unavoidable problem was the timeline. If the map shows an ice-free Antarctica, its source material must be thousands of years old. But history tells us that in that remote past, humans were hunter-gatherers or early farmers, living in small, scattered communities. They were not capable of charting a continent, let alone the entire world. So, if the people of recorded history didn't draw the original map, who did? To answer this question, We must leave the safe harbor of mainstream academia and venture into the deep, open waters of speculative theory. And in these waters, two extraordinary hypotheses have emerged. The first major theory, and the one favored by Professor Hapgood himself, keeps the explanation human, but rewrites the very definition of ancient history. This hypothesis proposes that long before the rise of Egypt, Sumeria, and Babylon, there existed a highly advanced global human civilization. This was not a primitive culture, but a sophisticated society of master navigators and scientists. They were the true ancient kings of the sea that Piri Reis mentioned in his notes. We can think of them as a real-life Atlantis, a brilliant civilization that rose and fell in the mists of prehistory, leaving behind only faint, scattered clues of their existence. According to this theory, this lost civilization flourished during a warmer period in Earth's past, a time when the climate was different and the coastline of Antarctica was, at least in part, free of its immense ice burden. Possessing a deep understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and longitudinous skill our own civilization wouldn't master for thousands of years, they embarked on a project of breathtaking ambition to create a complete and accurate map of the entire planet. Their ships, far more advanced than the galleons of Columbus's time, sailed every ocean, charting every continent with incredible precision. They were the first to see the true shape of the Americas, the first to navigate the Pacific, and the first and last to map the green shores of a temperate Antarctica. So, if this brilliant civilization existed, where did they go? Why is there no record of them? The theory provides a suitably epic answer: a global cataclysm. Proponents like Hapgood argued for a sudden Earth crust displacement, a catastrophic event where the planet's entire outer crust shifted, causing continents to move, sea levels to rise dramatically, and the climate to change almost overnight. This event would have triggered worldwide earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and megatsunamis, wiping this advanced civilization from the face of the earth. Their great cities would have been swallowed by the sea, their achievements buried under miles of mud and ice. They would have vanished, almost without a trace. Almost. The theory suggests that a few survivors managed to escape the cataclysm, finding refuge among the more primitive peoples of the world who had weathered the disaster. And more importantly, a few of their most precious artifacts survived: their maps. These charts, the sum total of their global knowledge, became sacred relics. They were copied and recopied over generations, passed down through secret societies and hidden in the great libraries of the ancient world, places like the Library of Alexandria. Over the centuries, the copies became more and more distorted. The coastlines warped, details were lost, but the core, accurate information remained, a faint echo of a forgotten world. Eventually, thousands of years later, one of these degraded copies of a prehistoric masterpiece found its way into the hands of an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. He didn't understand its true age or significance. He simply recognized it as a source of superior geographic knowledge and incorporated it into his own world map. In this view, the Piri Reis map is a message in a bottle, a ghost of a lost human past, crying out to us across the millennia. It's a breathtaking and romantic idea, but for some, even a lost supercivilization isn't enough to explain the map's deepest anomalies. This is where the second major theory emerges, a hypothesis that takes a giant leap from a lost human past into a cosmic intervention. This theory argues that to create the original source map, you would need technology far beyond even an advanced seafaring culture. You would need the ability to see through 2 miles of solid ice. This is the core of the ancient alien hypothesis. Proponents of this idea, like the famous author Erich von Däniken, argue that charting the subglacial coastline of Antarctica is a feat that cannot be accomplished from the deck of a ship, no matter how advanced. It requires a fundamentally different kind of perspective and technology. To know the true shape of the bedrock beneath an ice cap, you need something akin to modern aerial seismic profiling or ground-penetrating radar. You need the ability to scan the Earth from above. This leads to an inevitable question. Who, in the remote past, possessed this kind of technology? The answer, according to this theory, is no one from Earth. The ancient alien theory proposes that the original source map was not created by humans at all. It was created by extraterrestrial visitors who were surveying the planet thousands of years ago. In this scenario, the aliens were not invaders. They were explorers, scientists, or cartographers on a mission to chart the primitive, developing world of Earth. From the vantage point of their ships in orbit or from high-altitude atmospheric craft, they scanned the entire planet. They mapped its continents, its oceans, and, using their advanced sensor technology, they even mapped the true shape of the land hidden beneath the polar ice caps. The map they created would have been perfect, a flawless cartographic representation of planet Earth. Furthermore, proponents of this theory point to another strange feature of the Piri Reis map: its projection. Some researchers, including Charles Hapgood, noted that the map appears to be drawn using a sophisticated spherical projection, as if the cartographer was viewing the globe from a single point high up in space, somewhere above modern-day Cairo. This orbital perspective is far beyond the mathematical capabilities of any known ancient or 16th century culture. But it would be the natural way for a group of extraterrestrial surveyors to draw a map of a planet they were orbiting. So, how did this perfect alien map get into human hands? The theory offers several possibilities. Perhaps it was left behind intentionally, a gift to a primitive human tribe, a seed of knowledge meant to help them advance. Or maybe it was a test, a puzzle left for a future human civilization to solve once they were intelligent enough to understand its implications. A more mundane possibility is that it was simply lost, an artifact accidentally dropped or left behind after the survey mission was complete. Whatever the reason, this perfect alien chart became a holy object to the humans who found it. They revered it, but they didn't fully understand it. Like the lost civilization theory, they copied it over and over, and with each human-made copy, errors and distortions were introduced. The perfect alien blueprint became the flawed Piri Reis map. The odd distortions and missing islands aren't a sign of 16th century ignorance. They are the result of a human trying to copy a non-human document. These two grand theories, as different as they are, share a remarkable common ground. They both agree that the conventional story of history is wrong. They both insist that the Piri Reis map contains knowledge that it should not contain. They both point to a lost, golden age of incredible technical achievement. The only question that separates them is the identity of the original mapmakers. Are we looking at the legacy of a forgotten human empire, a civilization of our own blood and bone that was wiped from the earth? Or are we looking at something even more profound? A calling card from the stars, a piece of alien technology that has been passed down through human hands for thousands of years? The map becomes a fork in the road of human history, forcing us to choose between a lost past or a cosmic one. We have journeyed into the realm of the extraordinary. We've explored the possibility of lost supercivilizations and considered the tantalizing idea of alien cartographers leaving their blueprints behind. These are epic, powerful theories, and they provide a sense of wonder that is hard to resist. They explain the seemingly impossible knowledge of the Piri Reis map with grand, sweeping narratives. But now, our investigation must take a crucial turn. It is time to leave the world of speculation and enter the world of scrutiny. It's time for a reality check. We must now take these extraordinary claims and hold them up to the bright, unflinching light of historical and scientific evidence. What happens to the mystery when we stop asking, "What if?" and start asking, "Is it true?" Our investigation begins with the single most important question, the very foundation upon which all the speculative theories are built. Does the map really, truly show an ice-free Antarctica? The image is persuasive, the resemblance is there. But when modern cartographers and historians examine this claim, the vast majority arrive at a very different conclusion. They say no. The landmass at the bottom of the map is almost certainly not a scientifically accurate depiction of Queen Maud Land. It is, they argue, a distorted but entirely human rendering of the South American coastline. To understand this, we have to put ourselves in the mindset of a 16th century cartographer. The world was still a puzzle with huge missing pieces. Explorers would sail down a coast, charting it as they went, but when they turned back, the map would simply end. Cartographers back in Europe, tasked with creating a complete-looking chart, had to fill in the blanks. A very common practice was to take the known coastline and bend or continue it in a speculative direction, often to make it fit the shape of the parchment. On the Piri Reis map, the landmass in question flows directly and gracefully from the known coast of South America. Many scholars believe Piri Reis, or the source map's creator, simply took the coast as far as it was known and curved it eastward across the bottom of the page. The resemblance to Antarctica, in this view, is a remarkable coincidentia, classic case of what psychologists call pareidolia. That's the human tendency to see patterns in random data, like seeing a face in the clouds or an animal in a rock formation. We see the coast of Antarctica on the map because we are looking for it. The truth, skeptics argue, is far more mundane. The map even contains clear evidence of being a messy composite. It shows the mighty Amazon River twice at two different locations, a clear sign that Piri Reis was trying to reconcile conflicting information from different, flawed human sources, not copying one single perfect master map. But what about the ultimate piece of proof? What about the smoking gun? The now famous letter from the United States Air Force that seemed to confirm Professor Hapgood's theory. This is often presented as the final word, an official government validation of the map's impossible accuracy. But when we investigate the letter itself, and the context in which it was written, the story becomes far less definitive. The letter was not an official proclamation from the United States Air Force as an institution. It did not represent the conclusions of a formal, peer-reviewed study. It was a personal reply written by one man, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer, the commander of a single squadron. Ohlmeyer was, by all accounts, an intelligent man with a passion for maps. He was presented with Charles Hapgood's meticulously researched, persuasive argument. It's easy to see how he would have been intrigued. He looked at the map, he looked at his own modern charts, and he saw the resemblance. His letter, using phrases like "it is reasonable" and "agrees very remarkably," is an expression of his personal fascination and his professional opinion. It is not, however, a scientific declaration of fact. In the years since, the United States Air Force has never issued any formal statement or publication supporting the idea that the Piri Reis map is a chart of Antarctica. The letter was a single, private correspondence from one intrigued officer that has been amplified and mythologized for over 60 years. It has been taken out of context and transformed from a curious observation into a definitive government endorsement, something it never was. The smoking gun, when examined closely, turns out to be filled with smoke, but no fire. This brings us to our next critical point of investigation. Proponents of the mystery often say, even if the Antarctica claim is debatable, the rest of the map is impossibly accurate for its time. This is used as proof that Piri Reis must have had a source of superior, non-human knowledge. But is this claim actually true? Is the map, aside from the southern continent, a perfect representation of the world in 1513? The answer, again, is a firm no. While some parts are impressive for their era, the map is also filled with significant, glaring errors that are, in fact, the strongest clues to its true human origin. Let's look at the Caribbean, an area that was being actively explored at the time. On the Piri Reis map, it is wildly distorted. The island of Cuba is incorrectly drawn as a massive landmass attached to the North American continent. Many other islands are missing entirely or are drawn in the wrong size, shape, and position. Hispaniola is stretched and turned at an incorrect angle. These are not the mistakes of a super-advanced civilization or an alien surveyor with orbital technology. They are precisely the kinds of mistakes a human cartographer in 1513 would make, trying to stitch together conflicting reports and crude sketches from sailors who had no way of accurately measuring their position. The most damning error on the map is its longitude. In the 16th century, sailors could calculate their latitude, their north-south position, fairly accurately by measuring the angle of the North Star or the Sun. But longitude, their east-west position, was a complete mystery. The problem of longitude would not be solved for another 250 years, until the invention of the marine chronometer in the 18th century. The Piri Reis map displays massive, continent-wide errors in longitude, just as every other map from its time does. This is perhaps the single greatest argument against an ancient, advanced, or alien source. Any civilization capable of mapping an ice-free Antarctica or surveying the planet from orbit would have certainly mastered longitude. Their maps would be perfect. The Piri Reis map is not perfect. Its specific combination of strengths, decent coastlines, and weaknesses, terrible longitude, effectively watermarks it as a product of 16th century human technology. So, if the source was not a lost civilization or visitors from the stars, where did Piri Reis get his information? The simplest answer comes from the man himself. We must return to the words he wrote on the map. He compiled it from about 20 different source charts. The reality is that the age of discovery was also an age of espionage. Maps were not academic documents. They were instruments of power, state secrets worth more than gold. The Spanish and Portuguese empires guarded their latest cartographic data with deadly seriousness. Any captain who leaked a map to a rival power could face a death sentence. Piri Reis was an admiral in the Ottoman Navy, a direct rival and enemy to these European powers. He would have been at the forefront of this intelligence war. He would have had access to captured ships, which meant access to their captured charts. He would have interrogated captured sailors. He would have received intelligence reports from the vast network of Ottoman spies operating across Europe. The Columbus map he mentioned was likely one such piece of captured intelligence. The ancient maps he referenced were probably not from a prehistoric supercivilization, but could have been a respectful nod to the classical geographers like Ptolemy, whose work was being rediscovered and revered at the time. Piri Reis was a spymaster as much as he was a cartographer. His map is a brilliant work of military intelligence. He stitched together the best-kept secrets of his enemies to give his sultan a strategic advantage. The map is not a peaceful relic from a lost golden age. It is a weapon from a very real, very human intelligence war. In the end, the Piri Reis map is a masterpiece, but its genius lies not in its impossible accuracy, but in its very human story. It's a testament not to alien visitors, but to a single man's dedication, his scholarly passion, and his privileged position at the center of a global information war. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what was knowable in 1513, with all the brilliance and all the flaws that entails. The mystery of the map is not that it's too perfect for a human to have made, but that we, in our modern age, sometimes forget just how ingenious and resourceful humans have always been. The Piri Reis map remains one of history's most fascinating artifacts. Is it a portal to a forgotten past, showing us a world before the ice, mapped by ancient mariners or even alien visitors? Or is it a brilliant, beautiful, and very human masterpiece, a snapshot of a time when the edges of our world were still filled with mystery and imagination? The lines on the gazelle skin are faded, but the debate they inspire is as sharp as ever. It reminds us that sometimes The greatest secrets are not hidden in the ground, but drawn on a map, waiting for us to ask the right questions. What do you think? Was Piri Reis copying a lost, ancient blueprint, or was he a master of his own time? Let us know your theory in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into our hidden history. Thanks for exploring history's mysteries with Ancient Relics Keeper. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What secret should we unravel next? Stay curious and see you soon.